Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to spend time talking about what it means to have a solid foundation of data, which is kind of what we need in order to do all things analytics, all things AI, and that's what we care about in order to deliver to the mission of the public sector agencies that many of us work for. So thank you all for being here. I've got a question for you. Who is more excited about data than about AI? Okay, this is good. Who is more excited about AI than about data? Okay, some of you are so excited you raised your hands twice. I love it, I love it, I love it. Maybe it's the free lunch. Okay, so the first thing we want to spend some time talking about is this idea that when we have unified data, it actually unleashes value, and it unleashes value for AI. For those of you that have tried to build models, even if you're not trying to do something super advanced like AI, even if you're trying to do something like build a report, answer a question for a boss, the thing that stumps us, where we end up spending much more of our time than less, is that last piece of data. I can't seem to get the numbers from this region. I can't seem to get the data from this last system. And so what often happens is this is a symptom of the fact that our data estate is fragmented. We've got multiple source systems where our data resides in. We've got multiple different assets, data assets, where the data actually is in. And then, of course, there are multiple formats within which the data exists. And when we have that, our ability to be able to build the value add services on top to actually extract real value from data, which often is dark, often is unusable, becomes severely diminished. So what we are trying to do in an ideal world is we want to be able to get to that most sensitive data. We want to be able to get to that last corner of where that data exists, because it's always that missing piece that we need in order to be able to get to real value. And so the world that we all yearn for is a world where collaboration is open, where the data is nicely organized in domains, where we can get access to data immediately and we don't have to wait. How many of you would like to live in a world like that? Okay, how many of you feel like you live in a world kind of like that? Okay, okay. There's one person. You should find out who she works for. So it's going to be an influx of job applications into that organization. And you know, the reality is we clean up things, we get things organized, we get things governed, and then what happens? Something changes, right? There's a reorg, there is a new platform, there's a new technology, there's a new boss, there's a new priority, there's a new vision, there's a new strategy, there's a new set of contractors who have slightly different ideas for how things are actually going to get done. And the reality is, while on the one hand, we want to have access to all of this sensitive data, who typically gets in the way? Sorry? Security. Who else gets in the way? Legal, right? These are our favorite people. I will say that I spent most of my career in security. I am a recovering CISO, and so some of the things I'm going to talk to you about, it has taken me quite some time to get past the world that I lived in and the ethos that I had as a security person to really understand that value from data has to be unleashed, it has to be available, and the goal can't simply be security. And so when we look at survey after survey, when I talk to organization after organization, whether it's in the public sector or in the private sector, we see this often. We don't want to do AI. We've got lots and lots of ideas for how to do AI, but we're just not comfortable putting them into production because of security, because of privacy, because of legal. And that's the reality of the world that we live in. And so what does security want to do? They want to secure the cloud. They want to make sure that there is an ATO. They want to make sure that there's strong access controls. They want to make sure that every single thing is compliant. And yes, there's a lot of different compliances that organizations want, and at Databricks we have almost all of them, and every quarter it seems like we add a new 3, 4, 5-letter acronym to the list of ways that we are being compliant with some regulation somewhere in the world. And when we add all of this up, we find this dichotomy. We find this dichotomy between we want to democratize data. For those of you, how many of you were here early enough for the keynote? Okay, awesome, awesome. So then you got the free breakfast too. Good job. That's awesome. And so we want to democratize data, but we also want to secure our data. And oftentimes this is framed as this false dichotomy of it's either one or the other. This is kind of like this old adage, which I never understood, and maybe someone can help me understand this. How many of you have heard of having your cake and being able to eat it too? Okay, you know what I don't understand? Is what is the point of having your cake if you can't eat it? Like, is there any value to just saying, I have my cake, so I get to stare at it all day long, but I don't get to eat it? Same thing here. What's the value of having all of this data if you actually can't access it, if you can't actually use it, if you actually can't share it, you can't actually use it to build AI models and to build reports and to extract insights? It feels like an odd thing to be able to do just one of those and not both of those. The way this plays out often in government agencies is this. We've got a long list of services that every agency is tasked with delivering to its constituents, to citizens, to other agencies within the government. And we've got a lot of source systems, a very long list of source systems that this data is stored within, or that these systems need access to. However, or these systems need access to the data. However, it doesn't all work as well. And when it doesn't work as well, what do we end up with? We end up with fragmented views of the audience. We end up with legacy technology unable to scale. We end up with a difficulty to make the leap from using descriptive analytics and descriptive insights, which are all about the past, to being able to have predictive insights, which are all about the future. And of course, we lack the ability to do it in real time. This morning, in the last couple of hours, I've had conversations with a CIO and a CDO at two pretty significant federal agencies. And both of them complained about exactly this. We have an ocean of data, yet we are right in the middle of it and feel like we might be passing out from thirst. And so the reality is we have this data, it just is not very usable in many cases because we feel like we can't use it in a manner that is compliant, in a manner that's trustworthy, in a manner that actually is secure. And when we can't do that, we impair our ability to serve our constituents. We impede our ability to deliver revenue for organizations, agencies that are actually delivering revenue, or for others just to be able to deliver on their mission. And in many cases, paradoxically, because of this deluge of data and because of this plethora of murky policy and compliance requirements, we actually make it difficult for ourselves to feel confident of even being compliant with our own rules and policies. And then the last piece is what we would love to do, which in many ways is the promise of data being unleashed and democratized, is this notion that we can optimize operations, that data is the key to being able to do more with less. However, if data is not democratized in a secure way, if data is not well governed, we're not going to be able to do these things. Central to being able to govern our data is going to be, of course, the catalog. And what we find currently in many agencies is this idea that there is not just a catalog, there are many catalogs. There's just not a governance, there's many governance structures. And every department, and sometimes within a department, specific projects have grown up in their own silo because at some point they were super important to some leader. They were given enough budget, they were given a mandate to go do things on their own way. As a result, we've built many, many silos of data and AI assets and being built on different platforms over periods of decades. And the reality is, every single time one of those silos was built and every single time one of those silos was funded, it was done with the right intentions. It's not like someone sought to go do something in order to make for increased complexity, in order to make for increased ambiguity and increased challenge for the people that inherit the organization 5 or 10 years from now. They actually thought that this was the best approach. So they picked a certain data format. They picked a certain AI model. They picked a certain approach to doing it. Maybe they picked a certain language. Maybe they picked Python or Scala or R. Maybe they picked Iceberg or they picked Delta or they picked Parquet, because there is no shortage of options to pick from. However, as a result of many of those individual decisions being made one at a time, in aggregate, what they add up to is that our costs go up, that we have a lot of redundancy in compute and storage, and we often have this inkling to say, in order to do this, this is the data that I need, and I need all of this data to be brought into my structure and my way of doing it for my project in my department, which feels like the right thing to do at that moment in time, because it is going to give us the shortest path between where we are and where we need to be, because we are choosing to control our own destiny, and we are going to have complete control over all the systems and data that we need to, versus being beholden to other parts of the organization. The reality is, as we look back over the last 10, 15 years in the rear view of a lot of those decisions, it becomes more obvious that not taking an enterprise level view and approach to this is actually what got us into this problem to begin with. So it turns out that governance is the key to empowering data users across agency with the right access to sensitive workloads. So we have to figure out how to solve governance, not to solve governance by saying, I am going to do my own governance for my own thing, but how do we do governance in a broader enterprise sense so we get the benefit of what's happening across the agencies. In a world where we have strong governance, in a world where we can truly feel like we need to have a copy of the data once. So we leverage things like zero copy. We leverage things like we know that there is going to be the ability to get access to the data when there is an appropriate need to know, and we're going to be able to do it at scale, and we're going to be able to do it at speed. There are 6 specific things that need to be incorporated into the governance strategy. One is the ability to discover data. Versus saying, I need to suck up all the data and I need to have it here, there needs to be the ability to readily, likely AI enabled, be able to discover where the data is, maybe even using constructs like what Databricks is about to announce with data domains, to have that data readily organized so it can easily be found regardless of where it is within the agency, and perhaps even a broader aperture across the federal government, which is one of the conversations I had with a CIO this morning, is they're looking at how do we make that data sharing better, and in this case, this particular agency has authority across multiple agencies to be able to do that. The second, of course, is going to be around controlling access. Next is around being able to audit what already happened, because we want to make sure there isn't any malfeasance, there isn't any fraud, everyone is following the rules, and auditing is a pretty good control to make that possible. And then, of course, monitoring, not just in the past, but right now what's happening. lineage to be able to extract more insight and more information on where did this data come from? How did this come about? I built this model, but what were all the data sets that made this data, made up the features that were used to train this model? I would like to know, and I would like to know at the point in time that this version of the model was created and the experiment was run, did it come from some structured data or unstructured data or streaming data? I would like to know it all. And then, of course, I would like to enable the sharing of data in a governed manner. What organizations are looking for is they want one catalog that has unified governance for data and AI for everything. Remember that first picture I showed? Regardless of the source, regardless of the asset, regardless of the format, I want to be able to govern it all. It's got to be open. It's got to be able to support multiple engines. It must work well across formats, and it has to understand the mission. It has to have some business context, and this is where Unity Catalog, and specifically the business semantics capability, is all about connecting the data to the context of the mission. And so 3 things I want to double click on that Unity Catalog enables. The first one is around security and compliance. So you want to be able to secure your data, AI artifacts with flexible roles and attribute-based access control. So you don't want to have to go in and provision access at that fine-grained entitlement level. You'd like to be able to do it at the role level. You'd like to be able to do it at the attribute level, be able to use tags to dynamically give access to data that people need access to versus doing it explicitly one at a time. And you want to be able to automate to the extent possible self-service access with requests and approval flows without tons of integration with third-party identity and access management technologies. And then, of course, governing the flow of data. This is going to mean having real-time column-level lineage for data and for AI, and knowing what was done with your data, not just who accessed it, right? A lot of these capabilities are the ones that give us confidence to say we can allow for data to be further democratized, because now we have additional eyes and ears. We have additional insights. We have additional controls to make sure that the data is being used in a way to maximize the mission versus eroding it. We want to be able to gain visibility and observability into compliance, into cost, and quality, because it's not just security that we care about. We also care about practical realities like cost, and of course, the efficacy of what we're doing is going to be significantly impaired if the quality of the underlying data and the data pipelines is affected, and Unity Catalog will provide that. The other thing, for those of us that have been around long enough, that we've been burned by many a time, is we find that there is a platform, and it sounds amazing. And we go down the path, and 3 or 4 or 5 years later, the investment ceases, the partnership ceases, and all of a sudden, we feel like we are locked in to this one platform. However, it is no longer meeting the needs of the business, so then we pick whatever the next best flavor is for that year, and we hope that this is going to be the final solution that is actually going to work for us. So we see our customers experiencing that pain. We want to make sure that we're helping alleviate that pain, and the way we do that is we make sure that A, it's got to be unified across your data estate. It's got to be flexible. It's got to work regardless of the data format. We don't want to be in the business of picking winners or losers. We want to be the platform that says we're going to support all of your needs regardless of the platform that you have. And we want your engineers and data scientists to be empowered to use the tools that they prefer versus us imposing our preference on them. But the way that you make all of this future-proof is it has to be based on actual open source technology. So Unity Catalog, as many of you know, June of 2024 is when we actually made it open source. So whether you are using Databricks or not, you can certainly take advantage of Unity Catalog, and the rest of the 3.5 billion downloads worth of open source projects that Databricks very directly supports and contributes to. The last piece is AI-powered performance optimizations. This is key. If the expectation is that I have to have a very, very large army of people doing data governance, it will never get done. This is a conversation I just had 30 minutes ago. How do I convince my leadership that the work to build a data foundation is important? Well, you're not going to get approval for 50 people to do data foundation work. What you need is you need technology to give you that lever to be able to do this at scale with a lot less effort, which is what Unity Catalog does by giving you 20 times faster queries, 50% lower storage costs, without you having to hand tune every single one of these items. The last thing I wanted to mention as I close this out is, many of you are likely thinking, the catalog is an important element. Certainly, it addresses many of the risks associated with gaining access to and using sensitive data, but really, is that it? Are there other things beyond the catalog that Databricks can help with in our ecosystem in managing the broader set of AI risks? It turns out that there are AI risks across 4 different subsystems that make up any AI platform. It's the world of data, which is what we've really been talking about, but it's also the world of models and applications and unifying governance across them. So Unity Catalog is how we unify governance across them, but if we were to actually ask the question, what are all the risks associated with AI, it turns out that there are 62 risks associated with AI. More of these risks are mitigated by Databricks Unity Catalog than any other single technology that we have in our portfolio, hence the focus on Unity Catalog for today. These 62 risks are the centerpiece to something we call the Databricks AI security framework. What this does is it helps you understand your stakeholders, AI use cases. Perhaps you're using one of the many 80-plus solution accelerators that Databricks has published on our website. But then you look at the 62 risks across the 12 components of AI. Each of those are mapped to one or more of the 64 controls that can be used to mitigate those particular AI risks. Many of those controls are part of Unity Control, part of Unity Catalog. And then, of course, the thing that you're going to care about is how can I map the Databricks AI security framework, these risks and these controls, to NIST or to OWASP or to MITRE, other framework standards, industry bodies, and we've done all of that work by collaborating with them. And at the end, you're prioritizing the controls you need versus trying to implement everything. If you're interested in this, you can go to your favorite web browser and search engine and just search for DASF, and you can download the Databricks AI Security Framework version 2. We'll be releasing an updated version in the next few months. And if you are a director or above, we're doing an exec roundtable. I think we have 2 or 3 slots open at 3:45 p.m. later today in the Continental Room. So I wish I had time for questions, but I think I am about a minute and a half over my time. So with that, what I am going to do is I am really, really delighted and excited to introduce our customer speakers to show how we take much of what I talked about, which is building that secure foundation for AI. And Igor and Kapil, who are both from the Inter-American Development Bank Invest, IDB Invest, are going to spend some time talking to us about how they went on their journey. So Kapil and Igor, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Omar.
Kapil.
Let me take that. Thank you very much. Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Igor Valentin. I lead data management, analytics, and AI for IDB Invest. Together with Kapil here, we're going to be talking a little bit about our journey to get a scalable and secure AI. And it's clear who is the Treasury guy over here, who is the IT guy over here, right? Just by the way that we address it. But anyways, just getting the ball rolling, Our journey started truly 3 years ago, where we understood that we had to, in order for us to support our business and support the growth of our institution, we understood that we had to empower our business users, looking into solutions that would give them possibilities to truly take the most out of the platform. But without, in order for us to really truly talk about what that journey looked for or was looking into, we have to talk a little bit about our mission. So IDB Invest is the private sector of Inter-American Development Bank Group. It's the IDB Group. And at the IDB Invest, our main focus is to help fostering developing the Latin American, the Caribbean through the private sector, supporting investment and sustainable investment and the private sector growth in the region. And the way that we do that as of now is through mobilizing and capitalizing and using money from the private sectors in the countries that we have and implementing and deploying that money in the region, specifically driving innovation and fostering new business to grow and to be executed. And our journey started by really looking into 4 main principles that we had. So in order for us to do a data-led transformation, we understood that those 4 main principles had to be in place. Execute an analytical ecosystem modernization, because we had to start it over there because our analytical ecosystem was truly outdated. As a matter of fact, that illustration that we just saw today at the keynote kind of very much resonate with me. Our ecosystem was really made us feel like it was maybe 10 years apart from the private sector. So after that, our conversation started to be, we have to truly achieve a golden source. That was mandatory for everything that we're doing. Because data fragmentation was a reality from our institutions, and I'm pretty sure that's a reality for your institution as well. Excel's everywhere, databases everywhere, SQL's everywhere. So we had to look into a way to unify everything and truly achieve a single source of the truth. And with one concept in mind, have data governance as an enabler. So data governance had to be something that would help us expedite the usage of data, help us to truly reduce the barriers for those to access our information, and most importantly, without losing sight of the control and protection of our data, our main assets. And then with everything in place, our concept was, let's look into impact-driven use cases. We don't want to execute anything related to data and AI just for the sake of using the technology. We understood that it was super important now that our users were empowered. They could be taking care of the daily activities themselves, and us, from IT perspective, would be acting as a center of excellence to truly help them to move the needle, to implement use cases that were far advanced into the realities that they had back then. But we cannot do that without choosing the right technology. So we understood that Databricks was the partner for us in choice because they help us to they had many features that fulfill those needs that we had. To start with, I will go with the lakehouse. The lakehouse concept, the lakehouse architecture, allow us to tap into structured and non-structured data at the same time. Supporting multiple language and processes, the lakehouse help us to truly extract value from the non-structured data that we had in our institution. To be honest, as an international organization, I'm not so sure if some of you guys know, we sit on tons of reports and analysis executed by our economists and people in the field. And most likely back then, that knowledge was hidden on several PDF files spread out in our institution on SharePoints and etc. But no one truly had the opportunity to access that information. Then the Unity Catalog. Remember what I said? having data governance as an enabler, with the ability to have a fine-grained access control, the way to truly spread the information and control in one single console, access to all the analytical assets that we were developing. Unity Catalog helped us to ensure that we were sharing information across the teams in a safe manner. And most importantly, applying the rules in one single place to deploy across the board. So lastly, once we achieved those two steps and we understood that Databricks could provide us that through the Unity Catalog and the Lakehouse architecture, we went to look into details, and that was we were already back then starting to use more, and then we tapped into clusters policies. Something that was a key enabler to help us to achieve efficiency and collaboration in a very controlled manner. We were able to automatize cluster management. You know, we are in the cloud. Everything that we do costs. So we have to be very mindful. It's a change of mentality for most of those in our analytical ecosystem that were so used to run a query without even question. They were executing queries without taking care or being concerned about how many data they were pulling in. And because we were in the cloud, everything costs. So we had to do in a way that would be controlled as well. Also, that helped us to manage and have a better predictability in our analytical ecosystem. We don't have big pockets when we use government money. So we have to be very mindful about that too. With all of those things in place, we finally achieved the efficiency, the collaboration that we were looking for. Now, with the concept of single source implemented and the golden source implemented, all of our users consume data from a single platform, from a single ecosystem, leveraged by analytical sandboxes where they cross information with each other. They share analysis that they're doing in a much easier, simple manner without sharing Excels to everybody that they lose sight of the versions and controls that they had. So all of those things were super important to us because when we started to mature on that route, we started to see the benefits. And as I said, we started 3 years ago. And the benefits now talk by itself. 3 years later, we look into our analytical ecosystems, we look into the results that we have. And we are now 60% faster in any data-related projects that we executed. That's a huge gain. That's efficiency right there. We increased 85% the amount of users in our analytical ecosystem. Now everybody is consuming from our environment. And to the point that we changed the way that our institution is recruiting now. We are seeing more and more job descriptions in our institution coming with Databricks expertise and knowledge, which to us is huge. It's super important. That's the piece of the transformation that we are trying to do and to achieve. And we reach 7 figures on cost mitigation with projects that were all the way from automation of processes into looking into and bringing more efficiency to the institution. I want to bring 3 cases, and we have Kapil to kind of do a deep dive in one in specific. So we are right now not deploying 1, but 3 use cases in December, all powered by AI technologies or AI features that Databricks provided to us. 1, and as I said at the beginning, all impact-driven. Number 1 is we are deploying one solution it's a virtual assistant embedded into our core lending system that helps our investment officers to pull out information about those hidden knowledge that previously were sitting on PDF files, and they can ask questions to understand better how can they set it up a new project. So that is interaction. Through natural language processing, they ask questions, we send it to our Genie spaces, the Genie spaces send it back their responses to it. So that's number 1. It's being super useful. Number 2 is another example focused on our operations team, now into the risk department. As part of the processes that we do to analyze our transactions, We have risk investment officers looking into tons of reports coming from the agencies, the rating agencies that we have, and also analyzing historical information from past projects that they executed. They had to perform reading all of those documents and trying to suggest and recommend a risk rating for this particular new project that they are executing. With the technology and with Databricks and the models that we just relaunched, and we launched as a matter of fact yesterday, they are capable of, Databricks recommends what's the risk rating that this new project should have. That reduces 2 weeks in terms of assessment and analyzing one project that they have to do. So especially looking into the period that we are right now, end of the year, where they're trying to run and analyze as much projects as they can, that's a super powerful solution delivered for them right there, in their hands right now to kind of expedite their process to analyze information. And the last one is the one that we decided to double down right now, and I'm going to pass the floor to Kapil.
Thank you, Igor. So as Igor said, I am a finance guy. I'm not a data scientist, so I will give you the business perspective of what we have achieved. And before even doing that, I would like to answer what Omar asked in the start of this session was, what is more important to you guys, data or AI? For me, to be honest, is data. For me, AI is like a cherry on the cake. The only difference is that cherry is increasing in the size, and that's the fun part for us. So what Igor mentioned was my use case. So it was 1.5 years back. We didn't have any cash system. We didn't have any cash management system in-house where we can actually do a lot of analysis and actually project our cash forecast for coming months. So we had a choice, either to buy the off-the-shelf product, right, or build something in-house. And Databricks was picking up in the organization, and Igor and team was doing a fantastic job on that. And we said, okay, let's try Databricks. And that's where we decided that we're going to go with the Databricks because it was IT light, it was scalable, and it was, for us, we could see we can easily tailor it for a multi-currency, multi-market approach because we are in more than 30+ countries handling a lot of Latin markets and the G10 currencies. So we decided to build it internally, this system. And one of the biggest challenge, and some of the words you will see repetitive, fragmentation, was the big challenge for us. The data was sitting in different part of the organization. So we have a challenge how to bring all the data in one place. From all the internal system, we have a loan system, we have a derivative system, we have a fixed income system, a regular corporate account payable, account receivable, anything which a corporate treasury has. We have all those. And then we need to also connect to our banks, our custodians. We have roughly around 100 bank accounts, so we have to connect to all those. So that was the first step for us to actually work with our IT team to bring data in one place to centralize the data. So that was the key. That was, I guess, the longest time it took us was there, centralizing the data. And what Igor was saying earlier, to make it a single source of truth and institutionalizing it. So that helped us a lot there. So in order for you to do a cash management, the first part is obviously the cash forecast, and where it really helps is to have a centralized data. So once we did that, in the Databricks itself, what we did was we created a sophisticated logic, which was telling us how to fund the accounts, at what point, and where was the excess cash, how can I generate the alpha of my portfolio. And all this analysis, we were doing it in the Databricks. So it became, for us, basically an analytical tool. And these things we were not thinking, actually, when we started this project, but we were gaining. And there were a lot of features which were coming there. Once we did that, the idea was, OK, how I can make it the user-friendly? How I can actually put the advanced analytics into this? So we started with Genie. Worked fine. It's a conversational interface like running a SQL query. It was great. But to me, it was of a limited scope. It was giving me the answer, but we wanted to do something more. Then we started partnering with Databricks, and I see some of our relationship guys here. So what we did was we created a multi-agent tool there. The multi-agent tool was doing few things. One, it was doing data retrieval. Second, it was doing the data analysis of the data which it retrieved. And then it was giving us the business insights or ideas how to invest cash and having this portfolio very efficient in terms of managing the cash. So all this was done in the playground of the Databricks. And I think the biggest advantage I see, this was first time in my life I saw the business was doing a lot of stuff, and IT was a facilitator. IT, as Igor was saying, was an enabler for us. I've never seen that. In last 15, 20 years of my career, I've seen from the time where we have moved from so-called crystal reports. I do not know if anyone remember the crystal report. If anything you need to go to your IT, and IT has to work, create a report, and the turnaround time was a 1 month or so. But this was something which we can actually do it ourselves. So that's what my team is doing. And what Igor was mentioning earlier, the skill set in the industry is changing. Today, when I actually post a position, I'm looking for someone who knows about data, who has some background there, who knows about Databricks, who knows about AI. So I think that was our journey. And what we have been recently doing is taking it to another level. What we are trying to do is we are doing the alert system. What that alert system basically is doing is we have created an alert system where, based on what I was saying earlier on retrieving the data using the multi-agent features, it's actually sending a notifications to the users in the Microsoft Teams whenever it sees any kind of anomaly in terms of cash, whenever it sees the cash opportunities. Hey, there's a cash opportunity, you can move money from one account to another account, you can do an FX, so it's doing all those things there. So that's making it easy that you don't have to go now always, as a user, I don't have to go to Databricks always. There are some alerts which I'm getting in the Microsoft team, which makes life easier. So net results is that being a finance guy, I love the last slide which Igor was present, is 7-figure saving. For me, that is one way of looking at aspect. For me, it's actually ability to generate alpha on my portfolio, because that's my bread and butter. So I think that's how I've been using Databricks there, and it's great to be here.
No, fantastic. And that is a true example of collaboration, right? Something that I said in the early stages and principles that we were looking into once we were modernizing our analytical ecosystem. Of course, it's a combination between tools, the right technology, the right people, and the right processes in place. And we have to connect all of those things. And the reason why we chose Databricks was because it helped us to connect all of those things together, and having them being managed by a very small and tiny team, a very mighty team as well. So thank you guys very much. It seems that we gave you guys 3 minutes back according to our slides, to our timer over here. So we'll be happy to stay here, down here, and take any questions. And Omar's back.
Well, Kapil, Igor, thank you for walking us through how you've been using Databricks. Loved hearing about the cash management system, and I love the description of IT Lite. So you decided to build it yourself, but without the heavy lift of what typically entails when we think that this is a build versus buy decision. So there is sort of that third option, which is there's the build light option, or the IT Lite option. Kapil and Igor will be around, so if you have questions for them, for me, please feel free to come up. And I think we have a 15-minute break before our next session, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the Data and AI World Tour in DC today. So
thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.